A warm welcome to Disky Talk with Luyolo. On today's episode, we discuss all things PSL transfer window. Right, I'll start by introducing a returning guest. He goes by the name of Solly. How are you doing, bro?
I'm well, my brother. How are you?
All is well.
Too strong.
I'm glad to
the Disky Talk listeners as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, I am your host with your most, and I go by the name of Luyolo. To all those who are new to Disky Talk with Luyolo, welcome to the family. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and hit the notification bell. And those who have been a part of this journey, I hope that you enjoy this episode. So let's get right into it. So we'll start with the free agents. We'll start with a man who became a free agent very early on in the season, and it caused a lot of talking points and controversy. It goes by the name of Pule Ntshangase. How do you feel about him being a free agent in this current time, and where do you think is his next move?
Ntshangase, hey, former Chiefs player now, which is obviously a club close and dear to our hearts, right? So, him going into the free agency was expected, looking at how his career kind of deteriorated at Chiefs over the years. You know, he really didn't fall into any favor with the coaches. He did get opportunities here and there, but he never really got that amount of game time that one was expecting out of Ntshangase. And when he did play, he wasn't necessarily as effective as well. You know, he didn't show us what he showed us when he was at a Black Leopards and people were ranting and raving about him, you know, as one of the only NFD players that's playing in the national team, or got a who got a national team call-up. So the hype was really big. You know, but hype is hype, man. When it comes to the crunch, I do feel like mentally, psychologically, as a player, he maybe was not mentally strong, you know, to deal with the situations that he had in front of him at the time. And, you know, there's been rumors that he's got that superstar complex, you know, I'm too big for this, I'm too good for this. It's sad to see him kind of fall out with Chiefs, because I was excited when the signing happened.
Yeah.
I was excited with the future of what he could offer us as a club, especially in the position that he played, because we've lacked a player like that for years, you know. But it didn't work out. So him going into the free agency was definitely expected, because we haven't really heard much of Pule Ntshangase for the last 2-3 years. And you fall out of the conversation as a player for that long, we really start doubting Ugutu Gupi, you know? So where he could go, look, the pool of clubs are quite, especially in the PSL, I think he could get a club there.
Yeah.
There's many clubs that would be willing to sign a player of Pule Ntsangase's caliber. But I don't know if the off the field situation or the player's mindset, the player's persona, I'm not too sure which club he would be able to fit into or who would be willing to take that risk. But, you know, looking at what Benny has been doing at Amazulu, it would be quite interesting to see him fit into that. Because Ntshangase is that kind of player. I think he needs a team of fighters around him. And he came into Chiefs at the time where we were too into the glamour than the fighting, you know. We weren't about the football, we were just about the glamour. So he came at, I believe he maybe came at the wrong time for his trajectory.
Yeah.
But if you look at him at a club like Leopards, for example, where he flourished, you would say an Amazulu is obviously miles better than a Leopards, but the club culture would probably be similar. So I would see him kind of fit into an Amazulu. I could probably see him fit, because you also need to go to a place where you're going to get game time.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure if he'll get as much game time at Amazulu, but the opportunity is there. A club like Golden Arrows, which gave a very good showing over the last season, would be a good place to also try see what you can do, you know. Cape Town City, if they'd be willing, but I don't know if John Comitis would be keen on taking on Njangase with what he has at the moment. I don't know, but he would fit in quite well at a Cape Town City, a Super Sport, Amazulu, a Golden Arrows, any general top 6, top 8 team. But when it comes to your big three, Pirates, Sundowns, Chiefs, at the moment, I don't think anybody would be looking at his signature right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one, especially considering the fact that when he was at Kaizer Chiefs, he didn't.
Yeah.
It
fell flat.
He didn't really show us much with regards to what he can do, and I'm not even going to go into the numbers because we all know how dismal they are. It's just disappointing for me because when he was coming through the ranks and he was playing for Black Leopards, he looked like a midfielder that we had longed for within South African football. A midfielder who more or less fits the mold of what we love to see as South African fans. And when you see players like that not make the grade, it really hurts you and you get disappointed. And with the off-field rumors, one then gets to ask themselves, was he always dedicated? Was he always in the right frame of mind? Because when you do go and play for a team as big as Kaizer Chiefs, it's not just about what you can do on the field, but it's what you do off the field, and your psychology, your approach to life, and just how you carry yourself as a human being and your mannerisms as well. And, they say there's no smoke without fire. And also, another thing is Chiefs had... in his tenure, I stand to be corrected, about 4 different coaches, yet he did not feature consistently underneath one.
Anyone.
So it then shows you that he's the common denominator, and it means that the problem most likely lays with him. And I just think that, look, within the country that we're in, he's got time. He's got time to turn his situation around, and I think he can actually save his career because I think he's a very good footballer. The other issue that I have with Pule Njangase is that he doesn't seem like an individual who is willing to adapt to his situation. He doesn't seem like a midfielder who's willing to modernize his game and refine certain aspects of his game and add certain things to his game. Because he's very good on the ball, we all know that. But when I watch him and the energy I pick up and what he exudes energy of a person who I just want to play with the ball, and that's it. The other part, these people, not really interested in that. And I think he has to work on his game and refine it to a complete skill set. And if he can do that, and the biggest thing, work on his psychological side, I think then we could see him contesting in the DStv Premiership. Because another thing that you have to realize is gone are the days where teams are desperate for talent.
Yes.
There's lots of talent.
The pool is huge.
There's lots of talent and there's lots of disciplined players as well coming through. And the more the game grows, the more professional it has to be. And you mentioned a very pertinent point when you said you don't know if a John Comitis would take a chance. And I mean, when you look at Mr. John Comitis, he's a professional. You look at how Cape Town City is run as a club. They are a group of professional footballers. Things are done in an adequate manner. Does Pule Njangase fit into that? From a playing perspective, yes. However, modern day football isn't just about fitting in with regards to the tactics, with regards to on the field. No.
Yeah.
However, your personality within the squad, the culture of the club, and where the club is headed to. So if we're looking at clubs, then from a playing perspective, I'm looking at a Super Sport. I'm looking at a Cape Town City under an Eric Tinkler, who we all know loves to play a very exciting, free-flowing brand of passing football. So I think that's more or less where he could fit in.
City would be exciting. Actually, more than any other club, I think City would actually be the ideal club. But like I said, attitude, man. I was thinking as you're speaking, what do we attribute all of this to? Do we attribute it to his attitude? Do we attribute it to, maybe, I don't know, feeling like you're not getting enough support? I don't know, what I mean? But for me, like you're saying, the common denominator always seems to be him. So I definitely, and even in his playing style, when you see him play, I'm one that always advocates for arrogance in a player, because you need to believe in yourself. But he looks like he tends to look lazy sometimes. Like others will do the work for me. I just need to do the crucial special parts. And we know you're great, but are you that great? For us to now define a whole game around you like that.
Exactly, because the truth is, this is a man who came from the lower division, being NFD. It's not like he came from maybe another DSTV Premiership side, like a Super Sport. So he hadn't really justified his ability. It's what we had seen when he'd get called up to the national team, what we had seen when he was with Black Leopards. However, at the highest level, he hasn't shown us anything, if we have to be objective and if we have to be honest, because at the end of the day, we care for our footballers. And when we hold them accountable, I think in one way or another, we then assist them to be able to help themselves, to actually sort of look at themselves in the mirror and objectively ask themselves questions, and I think that is very important if he still wants to play football at the highest level. So you had mentioned Amazulu, and I want us to move on to a player who has been heavily linked to Amazulu, and he goes by the name of Keegan Buchanan. What do you make of Amazulu potentially snapping him up? That remains to be seen, as we don't have confirmation as of yet. However, it is alleged that he is in communication with Amazulu, and it looks set that he will sign on a 2-year deal. What do you make of Keegan Buchanan potentially playing for Amazulu under Benny McCarthy?
Another ex-Kaizer Chiefs, soldier there. Who, again, is another player that, didn't necessarily break into that Kaizer Chiefs team and claim a position, But for him, it's probably different compared to Njangase, because when you look at a Keegan Buchanan, man, what a player. That boy, man, very, very underrated. And I also feel he wasn't used effectively at Chiefs, because you look at Keegan Buchanan at Celtics, for example, on fire, and in
Maritzburg
as well, And with the prospects of him going to a club like Amazulu, he's another one that could fit perfectly into like a Cape Town City or an Amazulu or Supersport or an Amazulu itself, So look, with what Benny's building, what Benny has achieved with Amazulu first season down with the players that he's had, and some of the additions that he's added into his squad and those that he's looking to add, like a Buchanan, you already see this man is definitely hungry to win. He wants trophies. He wants to play with the best players. Benny is an intelligent coach who loves using hard-working players that are also ball players. And Keegan Buchanan is phenomenal on the ball. So calm, so elegant, beautiful with the pass. Does the workload on defense as well. So, he's very versatile in that midfield role. And in a club like Amazulu, you definitely need to reinforce that role a little bit more. And with a player like that, I'm telling you, you're going to get the best out of it, So I'm excited about that link, but I do see him potentially getting snapped up by another French club. If I was Cape Town City, I'd be looking for his signature. If I was Supersport with my current situation and the prospects of who I may lose, I will definitely be looking at a Keegan Buchanan as one of my top 2, top 3 in my list. So it's an exciting prospect, and it makes sense. Benny likes playing with like-minded individuals, hungry individuals that are also written off. Individuals that are written off with a point to prove. Benny McCarthy is that type of character. He will give you the opportunity, and he's an inspirational player. He's an inspirational individual who has done it all as a player. So from any team that he could walk into, I do feel like first things first, he gains the player's respect.
Immediately.
So a player like Keegan Buchanan would play for Benny. He would fight for Benny. He's a player that plays for himself, that one. He really puts his heart on the line. He puts his heart on the sleeve, and he plays for the badge. He plays for the team, and he's effective. He's very, very effective. So it would be a proper acquisition for Amazulu and a very good, strong one for next season.
Yeah, definitely. Especially considering the fact that they will be contesting in CAF Champions League football, and they will be looking to stake their claim within the domestic competitions. So when you have a Keegan Buchanan, what that then does is that it gives you a different dimension in midfield, because if you want to, as opposed to just playing his name is slipping my mind.
Where
Mahaula.
Yes.
As opposed to playing Mahaula alone as a pivot, you could go maybe with a double pivot of him and Keegan Buchanan, and then you could have a number 10 type player. You could have Amigo Mamela coming just behind the striker. So he does give you different dimensions, and you could also play Keegan Buchanan alongside Sitere as two number 8s, Mahaula behind them as the number 6. So Keegan Buchanan is a player which is, I rate very highly.
Very much.
And I remember the first time I watched him, it was actually at the High Performance Center. He was on national team duty with the under-20s. And this is a player who amazed me, because this is a player who was able to ping passes, diagonal passes, 50 yards, And what amazed me the most was he played 2 quality balls with both one with the left foot, the other with the right foot, but it was the exact same pass, with regards to the quality, with regards to the weight of pass as well.
Completing the pass
and
too.
that to me was like, okay, so which foot does he use? And in South Africa, we don't have a lot of ambidextrous players. We don't have a lot of players who are so tuned to the game that they understand both the technical and the tactical side of things. And he's one of those players.
Very intelligent.
He's a player who I feel that had things gone differently, he would have been playing in Europe. So I'm very excited to see where he ends up. And I personally, as John Comites, I would have gone for him. I would have definitely gone for him. A super sport as well that you mentioned. And it's unfortunate that talks had broken down with Swallows, because there were reports that he was in communication with them and that he could have signed a short-term deal where he would have ended the season. So it's sad, because Swallows, I think, could have also been a really, really good club for him. Because when you look at Swallows and the direction they headed to and the type of players they have and who they are going to potentially lose, going forward and building around the Keegan Buchanan, who still has, I think, quite a good 3 to 5 years left in him, where he's such an experienced player and he offers quality as well. I think that would have been a good signing. However, it remains to be seen, and whether he ends up at Amazulu or at a Cape Town City or at a Supersport, I am excited either way. However, most likely he will be wearing the green jersey of Usutu next season. And moving on to midfield maestros, the dynamic duo. We've mentioned Supersport earlier on within the episode, and we mentioned who they could possibly lose, and the players who they could possibly lose. We're looking at a Mbule and a Mokoena. So we will start with
huge.
We will start with a Mokoena. He's been linked to so many teams, and not just locally, abroad as well. Where do you see him going, and what would you like to see for his career?
Quality player. That boy is phenomenal. Mokoena has always shown so much great potential, and let's be honest, in a Supersport outfit that performs well or struggles, he'll always be one of the players you kind of pinpoint to say, he was the best player in the team, or he was really putting in the work for the team. The work he does in midfield, his intelligence, his he can pick the right moments. His level of intelligence allows him to pick the right moments to be able to either make the perfect pass, knit play from deep for Supersport to create, an attack. And obviously that he's very Shompokekana-esque for me as well, in his play style. Maybe smaller physically, maybe doesn't have that physical presence, but he compensates for it with the tenacity and the work ethic, He knows he's not the biggest player, but Mbule Mokoena will fight the biggest player on the opposition side for the ball anytime. They'll tussle, and he'll be there pound for strength, So he's very well conditioned.
he was actually at Harmony.
At Harmony Sports Academy, yes.
Under Mbule. Yeah.
But you get the sense that he's the kind of player that says, if I'm going to go into a particular structure, who has done the best in my position? You know? Okay, pinpoints these individuals, and how can I either add value to what these people have left, you know? He seems like an introspective player, you know, and for me the best players in football are introspective players. Players that don't only look at what they have to offer, but also look at either what their opposition can offer, their greatest competition in the same position has to offer, to say, what can I learn from this guy? What can I learn from what they do that I don't have in my arsenal? And I feel like that's exactly the kind of player that Mokoena is, and that's what he showed, you know, within his attributes at SuperSport. Yeah. Now, him going to a larger team with a larger pool of quality players is only going to be greater for him. It's only going to be the best thing for him, you know. Maybe he may struggle for game time at the beginning. You know, the transfer situation is always a tricky one for many players over their first season at a club, right? But he's the kind of player that seems like he has the right mental fortitude to remain patient, and when his opportunity comes, he'll use it and grab it with both hands. I would love to see him play overseas. He's a player I would have loved to see play abroad long ago. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that sometimes you do need to be patient with certain people, you know. And I do think that you could still achieve quite a few successes in, you know, countries like your Belgiums, you know, abroad. So if the opportunity calls abroad, I'd say go. But locally, the ideal club that I would probably see Mokoena go to. Look, Sundowns is just so packed, man. It's chock-a-block. It has everyone. And I know that Sundowns would definitely love to have a signature. You know, they were definitely gunning from him together with Aubrey Mudiba for seasons. You know, Pito wanted Tebogo Mokoena long ago. You know, so I do think if he's within Mangoba Mniti's plans and Rulana Mokoena, why not go to Sundowns, right? Well, like I said, the pool of players in that midfield, there's a lot. He might sit out for quite a bit, but he's a player that I feel like any coach would want to use. So in the alternative, do we then say, does he go to an Orlando Pirates? Well, look, with an Orlando Pirates, he'll definitely play. I believe in that midfield, he'll definitely play. But let's look at the coach now. Would he be in the coach's plans? And knowing the coach that is currently at Pirates, I don't know. I don't know if Zimba would be able to use him effectively anyway as well. So he'd effectively be going to waste over there. So then do we say he moves to a Cape Town City? Under Eric Tinkler, I do know that City is going to be under resurgence. He would be another quality player to have in that side, right? But for a player of his caliber, I don't think City would be the right move.
I also don't think City would break the bank for him, because it would be a lot of money, you know. And I'm glad that you mentioned Orlando Pirates, Sundowns. A team that you didn't mention was Kaizer Chiefs, and one of his mentors who was very instrumental to his upbringing and development, Mbule at Harmony, is now at Kaizer Chiefs. So
it bodes well for him.
A lot of people are now starting to make the link. Whether people are reaching because that's what they want, or whether people are thinking about it from a realistic perspective, remains to be seen. However, if I was him, I would be pushing for the European move. And I say this because, in my opinion, he's just cut above the rest when it comes to South Africa and how he plays in the midfield as well. You know, he's somewhat of a complete midfielder. You know, that's just my opinion. So. And I think the market he should be looking at is going abroad, right? But we also have to consider that move doesn't always come. And considering his age as well, he's now at a critical age that if he doesn't go within, you know, the next 18 months, it becomes very difficult, you know, for him to transition overseas.
Do you not then think if a season at Chiefs might bode well for that? A season or two at Chiefs?
I wouldn't say Chiefs, because Chiefs would be under construction. They'd be building. So walking into a project that's still being built, that for me then is yeah, it's not always the best to walk into. You'd rather walk into a much more structured club and much more structured style of play and philosophy that you already know. However, with Chiefs, now, with regards to how they're going to go about building their club and restructuring, it remains to be seen as to how is Stuart Baxter going to put together the pieces of the puzzle, you know. And I then wouldn't advocate for him to go there. I see the links with Mulifenseki. I see that it would be...
It's a high-risk, high-reward move.
Yeah, it is, because...
If things go right,
yeah,
then definitely.
You know...
It sets a...
But I'm just against players going into a club where there's a new coach who's just arrived and they're re-establishing and still finding their feet. That then it can become problematic for the player, because then adaptation and getting used to everything within the culture of the team, then it becomes a bit of a problem. Whereas on the other hand, a Mamelodi Sundowns, that's already a structured team. When you go there, you know exactly where you fit into this bigger picture. Whereas, like I say, at Chiefs, with them being under construction, I don't know. You know, it becomes a move that I'm not too sure. And I think he's better off if he decides then to move locally. I would then rather move to a Mamelodi Sundowns. And I say that because he can compete on all fronts for silverware. And this is an unpopular opinion. However, I'm going to throw it out there. Mamelodi Sundowns haven't found Hlompo Kekana's successor. The man who's fit for that role, in my opinion, is Mbule Mokoena. Yes, it's chock-a-block. Yes, there's so many midfielders. However, in my opinion, he can walk into that lineup and he can boss that midfield, because we do know that Sundowns have been missing Hlompo Kekana throughout the season. Yes, they've won. Yes, they won. They won the league title, and yes, they are building, and they're building a new structure, if you could say. However, in my opinion, I still stand firm with what I say and say that Mamelodi Sundowns still need a Hlompo Kekana. That's my opinion, and nobody can thoroughly substantiate his omission from the side.
Absolutely.
It almost seems as if something is being done here,
to it.
to prove a point or something, and you need a Hlompo Kekana. And I would reinstate Hlompo Kekana back. And if they're not looking at a Hlompo Kekana, then you have to look at a Mbule Mokoena, because he fits the mold of that role. And Mamelodi Sundowns don't have a midfielder who fits that role.
And they suffered for that in CAF competition.
Yeah.
If they had a Mbule Mokoena, maybe in this CAF competition, streak that they were in, maybe the result would have been different, because everybody was screaming, we needed a Hlompo in that game. You know, hence now it brought me to a place where I was going to ask you, okay, so if you said not Chiefs, it leaves us with Sundowns and Pirates, and obviously the more lucrative one to go for there is Sundowns. It's the one that makes the most sense, even though it's quite saturated up there. It makes sense because yes, he'll challenge for trophies. Yes, he'll obviously get also first look from international scouts, because when they look at South African teams, one of the first teams they go to now is Sundowns because of what they produce, right? But with that being said, because of the team being so saturated, will he get the game time is my question. You know, will he be able to hold down a position? He's a player that's capable of playing alone. Yeah. But you know that with a saturated team like that, look at how long it took Aubrey Mudiba. Yeah. And still, his position is not necessarily secure. Yeah. You get what I mean? It's those kind of things that worry me. So it leaves me with obviously an obvious option of a Pirates for a top side in the country and playing ability. But it still doesn't make sense for him to go to Pirates. Yeah, no, not Pirates for me. I think Sundowns, he would make it. And I say this because you look at Maboe, you have a look at Pelele, Kulisi. Those are the guys currently playing, right? And then you have Mbule Mokoena. He offers you a different dynamic. He's not like them. And with Jali playing there with a Mokoena, right? And then there's Rivaldo Coutinho. So as much as it's a saturated position, however, what Mokoena brings is something which is totally different. It's something that
they don't have currently. They've got it in Shompo Kegana, which he's not being used. However, within the current fold of the players who are playing consistently, they don't have that, in my opinion, from midfield.
If the European move doesn't come to pass, I think finishing off the next couple of years, maybe 3, 4, 5 years at Sundowns wouldn't really hurt him in his career as well. You know?
No, definitely. And moving on to his midfield partner, his partner in crime goes by the name of Mbule, who is my favorite from the two. Like, you know, this is a player who is so phenomenal, and yeah, and I'm so impressed by a player who, when he first burst onto the scene, you know, lovely touches, you know, beautiful on the ball, very skillful. However, a lot were calling for the improvement of numbers, and that's something that he was able to improve this past season with regards to his assist and his final ball as well. A player who's also got an eye for goal, you know, synonymous to that of Mbule Mokoena. Where do you think he fits into if that European move doesn't materialize? Because he's also another player who's been linked to so many teams.
Well, look, Mbule is a bit of a tricky one for me because if you guys remember how the George Lebesi move happened, you know, and how it kind of transpired with him going to Sundowns and things not working out. Mbule is that kind of player that worries me in that sense, that should he move from Supersport and go to a team like Chiefs, for example, I worry that Chiefs will give him the ability to play the way he needs to play, you know. He'll definitely shine in the club, but, you know, sometimes you need a team that's going to be able to also elevate you as a player.
Yeah.
A team like Kaizer Chiefs, I worry if... But the thing is, you know, when we speak of Chiefs like this, we speak of Chiefs based on Chiefs' track record over the last 4 or 5 years or so, right? 6 years or so. But we do understand that with a introduction of a coach like Stuart Baxter, if there's someone that could probably, you know, swing that magic wand and get almost immediate results, because he's not necessarily the best coach out there as well, but he's like a Mourinho. He's effective. You know, he could end that trophy drought for Chiefs. So with the right players who can also give him the right respect, maybe, you know, at Mbule Mokoena, Mbule in that Chiefs outfit could really shock the world, you know, and shock the country by really coming into the party and actually giving explosive performances. Mamelodi Sundowns is another club that he could go to, but again, that saturation, man. Like, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but hey, man, if you are the best player, in a country or in the world, and you want to prove yourself to be the best amongst the rest, why not? I mean, that was the culture at Madrid, right?
Yeah.
Los Galacticos, right? All the best players go there, and amongst these guys, you know, you're gonna have to earn your place.
Yeah.
So players like Mbule and Mbule Mokoena are players that would go to a Sundowns and have to fight and earn for their place. And you're right. I do think that both of them are players that could actually, at the end of the season, we could see them actually as players that have held on to their positions, respectively, in a team like Sundowns. A team like Pirates is a team that could benefit from a Mbule as well. But like I said, coming from a super sport, going into a club that's not even playing CAF Champions League, you know, next season, going into a club that's really struggling for a cohesion as well in the team. The name of the team will make anybody want to go there. Yes.
Yeah.
But and to be honest, Pirates could benefit from those two signings. They could benefit when you're looking at how a Fortune Makaringa has acclimatized into a club, you know, Spesihle Ndlovu and whatnot. Those are two players that definitely know how to hit the ground running in any setup.
Yeah.
I can definitely be guaranteed that those guys, they won't need 6 months to acclimatize.
Yeah.
They will be able to hit the ground running. Hence, there's eyes from Europe that are kind of, you know, looking into them, because the technical ability of these players is beautiful. You know, first touch on the ball, pass on the ball, shot power, on target. You know, when we look at intricate numbers, let's not go into how many goals scored, how many assists given. These are final phase numbers.
Yeah.
Let's look at the basic phase numbers. Passes completed, you know, carries on the ball, possession kept on the ball.
Yeah.
You know, these guys are second to none, you know. So it's surprising that they've stayed at SuperSport as long as they have, and because I saw them move there maybe 2-3 seasons ago.
Yeah.
But hey, I guess better late than never.
Yeah, and with Sipho Mbule, I think the club that he would be most suited to if he doesn't go abroad is actually Kaizer Chiefs. I think in that midfield with him and Pule Ngobo, I think they can form a very, very strong midfield. Of course, with a defensive midfielder who can then give them that stability and enable them to go out and play their football. However, here's a thought that has just come to mind. SuperSport have recently acquired a new sponsorship in Huawei. Does then one not think then, okay, they've managed to keep a hold of Bradley Grobler's services as well for another 2 years? Does then one not think that, okay, maybe if SuperSport could change their approach and mentality and say, you know what, we now want to start competing with the big boys. We've won the league before, 3 times on the spin. We now want to compete. And it's clear that they're able to pay these players really well.
Yeah.
It's clear that there's a culture within the club that keeps these players, because these players have stayed at the club for so long.
Yeah.
And there's no signs of disgruntlement.
No,
That is a thought that has just come to mind that
SuperSport is a family setup.
yeah,
right?
if it doesn't happen that they get those big moves, I feel like all is not lost because they can still compete. And these are players who won domestic trophies. It's not like you don't win trophies at SuperSport. You do win domestic trophies at SuperSport. If they change their approach and say, okay, maybe then we've kept Grobler, let's keep Mbule, let's keep Mokoena, let's add a couple of players where we think we need to beef up the squad and let's actually start competing.
Thoroughly challenge, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something which is different and which would be refreshing, which wouldn't, and their talents wouldn't be lost to us. Because I think these are the next 2 players that should be thoroughly integrated into that Bafana midfield. I believe that they should be starting for Bafana.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I fully agree with you there. And I do think that when you look at the prospects for these guys, it becomes difficult to leave home, But the thing is, when home doesn't look like it's and one of the reasons why they've stayed so much at SuperSport is because SuperSport has thoroughly, been within that conversation, within that top 5, top 4, top 6, mold of the PSL for years on end, And everybody knows that SuperSport is a cup-winning side.
Yeah.
And they know that it is a definite league-winning potential side as well. They can definitely challenge for the league. It's just that final hurdle always kind of, trips them up. The last 2 hurdles they trip up and, everybody maybe will just kind of build distance. Because they started the season well, under Caetano Tembo as well. But they just faded away, man, towards mid-season.
I just think it's lack of foundation. And I say that with all due respect to Mr. Caetano Tembo. However, when it comes to his approach and when it comes to his structure and philosophy, which at times I feel is non-existent because of the way in which he plays. No, because there's games where you'll see him play with Sipho Mbule and Tebogo Mokoena in the heart of midfield. Yeah. Just the pair of them. No defensive midfielder, to actually stabilize. And then you have these players who have to play as either box to box or they have to play as a double pivot. Whereas you're doing them an injustice with the offensive abilities they possess. That's why I say at times it boils down to the lack of foundation and the lack of structure that Mr. Caetano Tembo doesn't have, in my opinion. I think SuperSport, with a better coach, they can do a lot better.
I was going to ask, under better management, what do you think they'd achieve?
A lot better. However, we have started bringing up the topic of coaches. The topic of coaches. So, Eric Tinkler has returned to Cape Town City. He did take the dugout in the past, the last 2 games of the league, and he won 1, lost 1. However, Tinkler is back in the building. What do you make of his return to Cape Town City?
Exciting to see Tinkler back in the dugout. Good coach. Generally, I think he's a very decent coach, and I think out of all the teams in the country, Cape Town City is probably his best fit.
Yeah.
He left there under very sour conditions. I was surprised actually when I heard that he's going back because I thought his bridges are burnt. But the last 2 years have taught me that You know, in football, never take anything at face value. I could be fighting with you today and tomorrow we're hugging again, you know? It was very sour how Tinkler and John Comitis parted ways. John Comitis felt very betrayed by Tinkler, and it showed. It showed that it was hurt. And the move didn't work out for Tinkler, so he did get burnt, you know. So Comitis was vindicated in a sense. So many would say Tinkler went back with his tail between his legs, but we also do understand that the situation at Cape Town City was also quite dire. So John Comitis also had to kind of swallow his pride and say, look, we had a bad encounter, but we've had great times together. You understand the club. And like some of the previous episodes when we spoke about European coaches, how, you know, Real Madrid went for safety going for Carlo Ancelotti, how Juventus went for safety going for Massimiliano Allegri. I think Cape Town City is doing very similar mold. Very similar mold.
And I'm very excited with his appointment, because I think he's one of those coaches who can really build a very strong squad. A. B. He instills a style of play and a philosophy which
is exciting football,
is beautiful yet effective. You know, and
both attacking and defense as well.
Very structured, very well balanced. So I'm very excited to see how Cape Town City will do underneath him, and the type of players that they also going to get as well. Because Tinkler does bring a lot of excitement to your club. You know, you think about what he did for Maritzburg United. You know, the buzz and the excitement he was able to generate on Friday night. You know, and how Maritzburg had now become that team. Everybody's Friday night football. Maritzburg football. Everybody's second favorite team within the league, right? So. Moving on to another...
Although, before you move on, the timing, you know, the one thing I definitely want to add on to is the timing of the move. I think it's ideal because it gives them the opportunity to have a preseason. And for any coach, having a full preseason with a good squad, man, we could see Cape Town City make it into that top 3 next season.
I've always felt that Cape Town City are a side which should be challenging with the financial muscle, the resources, the personnel, and the quality that they possess within their side, and the way the club is run. I've always felt that they should be challenging for top honors, you know, on each and every single front, you know. And moving on to another coach who's returned. It's almost as if it's the season for coaches to go back home.
Return of the man.
You know, and that is Mr. Stuart Baxter. That's a coach who's returned back to Naturena. What do you make of his return? And
like I touched on earlier, you know, Baxter is definitely he reminds me of a Mourinho, you know, not the best out there, you know, but there's something special about it. Because his tactics are effective. He's very smart in terms of reading the opposition. So unlike our previous coach, who I won't mention by name, but all of us know him. You know, and you of all people on this platform have been very vocal about how his lack of, you know, adaptability has kind of come to the front. His lack of research and studying of his opponent has actually come to the front as well. His lack of preparation in that sense. Stuart Baxter is a completely different side of the coin. Stuart Baxter goes into preparation. He studies the opposition. He studies each player in the opposition side as well. That's why him and Peter Musumane always had these titanic battles, you know, because it would be not just the battle of the teams, but the battle of the wits. And Baxter has quite a lot of wit in the game, you know. He knows how to read how the situation is going and make contingency plans in action, you know. And like I said, he's the kind of coach that has earned the respect of the players at Chiefs because of what he's capable of achieving there on all the stints that he's had at Chiefs. You know, you realize that he's the kind of individual, even at national team duty. You know, the players that played under him domestically and under the national team gave that man respect, even though maybe at national team level it didn't really fully translate. But he's one coach that, for foreign coaches, he's one of the few coaches that understand South African football. He reminds me of a Paul Doleza, you know, which is why he's also flourishing at the Chiefs like a Paul Doleza did. You know, he has that mindset of saying, I know what the South African faithful want. And he understands the South African player. He understands the South African culture. So hence he did well, you know, relatively well with his numbers as well in national team level. So translating that to Kaizer Chiefs, I do feel like it will be a positive for them.
Yeah.
I do feel like it is a Hail Mary that's going to help us kind of stabilize. It's a Hail Mary that's going to help us really come back into the fold of the conversation. You know, a thought came to me the other day which broke my heart. When I was growing up, you know, I would sit down next to the TV with my grandfather and watch Kaizer Chiefs games and be like, this is a club I want to support, you know?
Yeah.
Because of the football that they played, because of the culture that they had, because of the hype that was around Kaizer Chiefs. The current crop of youngsters know Kaizer Chiefs as a flop team.
Yes.
So
they want to support and play for Mamelodi
Sundowns. So young kids right now don't really understand the hype behind Chiefs.
Yeah.
You know, it's a historic thing, and we all know, you know, young kids don't go to search what history is. They want to see what's happening right now. You know, so a lot of youth has fallen out of love with Chiefs. It's only us abantu abayazi, you're from Dala, that are still holding on to being prisoners of hope, you know?
Yeah.
And that hurts, because any kid that watched TV, you know, you saw Pirates, you saw Chiefs, you saw Sundowns, and that was it. But right now, Sundowns is really occupying that entire conversation.
Yeah.
So that's heartbreaking. But I do feel like a Baxter, and let's look at the history.
Yeah.
He came in, 2012, 2013? I don't remember the season he came in previously. And Chiefs were in dire straits. We were in a very dire situation at the time. And he came in with a rescue. So I do believe he has what it takes, and he knows what it takes to actually give us a bit of a turnaround again. I'm not saying it's going to be immediate.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be, you know, league titles from the get-go. But I do feel like there might be a league title in there for Baxter maybe later on. However, other domestic trophies are definitely on the card right now. And I've never had the confidence like I did. You know, I was hopeful with Gavin Hunt.
Yeah.
I was really hopeful based on his track record. But when it came down to the punt, I realized it wasn't based on him wanting to go there to do something. And with all the clubs he's gone to where he's attained success, it's because he wanted to be there.
Yeah.
So Baxter, definitely, good choice, good safety net to follow.
So I'm going to be very controversial with this one.
An unpopular opinion. Let's go.
Yeah, I just want one name. That's it. No substantiating, no explaining yourself. Who will be Orlando Pirates' next coach?
Off the top of the dome. Whoa! Gavin Hunt go. Gavin Hunt go. You know, ideal coach for me, in my opinion, would be Benny. Believe it or not. I still say maybe yes, another season or two at Amazulu, but he's my ideal successor for a Pirates turnaround in future, right? But obviously they need results now. They need someone who will try steady the ship now.
Yeah.
Gavin Hunt maybe. But with his track record at Chiefs, I don't know. But hey, maybe he has better players. Maybe Gavin Hunt at the Pirates. Yeah. Why not? Give him a shot. Let's see.
Yeah, and all his players, they're all there. Pirates, your Hotos,
your Tyson. You know what I'm saying? So he could actually transform Pirates into his little Vits. And we all know that he did have success with Vits, you know. He as much as maybe people wouldn't have considered Vits to be one of the strongest sides in the country. Yeah. But I mean, they competed for the league. They were always there in that top two, you know. And they are a team that really causes problems for any of the top two, top three teams. You know, they would cause problems for a Chiefs, cause problems for a Pirates and a Sundowns. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe take him there with these players and see what he does. But Super Sports is also on the cards. Yeah.
A lot remains to be seen. However, let's move on to the extra time segment of today's episode, and that's the overseas-based players. So these three players, I've got Bongani Zungu, I've got Keegan Dolly, I've got Percy Tau, who there's a lot of rumors and a lot of news around these three names with regards to where they might end up. So even with this one, I don't want us to get into detail too much, but I just want you to give me more or less where do you think they'll end up. Let's start with Keegan Dolly.
Hands down my favorite player.
Yeah.
You know, Keegan Dolly, what a phenomenal guy. For him to spend as much time as he did at Montpellier for me was a tick in the box. You know? For him to stay in those books, even with the injuries and, you know, some of the, you know, troubles he's had, I really feel like it's a tick in the box to say, you know, he survived the French league. He stayed with the club for the duration of his contract, which is a positive, you know. Moves. Obviously, he's rumored to come back to Sundowns, which I feel, okay, safe move. But I don't know, with the saturation of that team and, you know, the players we're talking about who could actually go into that team, will he be able... His quality, so many people would say he earns his spot to play upon walking into the dressing room.
Yeah.
But I would also say maybe another French side like a Cape Town City, if they could snatch him up, hey man, it changes the conversation, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Bongani Zungu... Oh yeah, and the Al Ahly move. Sorry, the Al Ahly move for Dolly. That's another possible good move.
So
that I feel like
if I have to call it, I think he'll end up at Al Ahly.
Yeah.
That's where I see him going, and I think it would be a very great challenge for him.
Absolutely.
And I say so because, yes, in my opinion, he failed in Europe. You know, it's a harsh word, strong word for one of my favorite players. You know, however, he really didn't live up to the expectations that we all had hoped for. However, I think Al Ahly is a good team.
Absolutely.
Where he can build himself up again, where he can compete at the highest level within CAF Champions League football, and also regain his spot into the national team. I think Al Ahly would be a very good fit, considering the fact that he'd worked with Pitso Mosimane previously. With Bongani Zungu, yeah, it's very difficult. You know, whenever there's links for these players to come back to South Africa, I don't like reading.
Yeah,
I don't like
same
seeing
here,
it as well
same
because
here.
I think they should stay in Europe.
Same here.
However, I do think Bongani Zungu will stay in Europe, and I don't see him coming back to the Kaizer Chiefs that he's been linked to.
Far too much
As
quality.
to where he stays in Europe, that remains to be seen. However, I see him staying in Europe.
Which league do you think would be suited for him to go to, though?
I still think he's fine in the French league. You know, I still think he's fine in the French league. There's La Liga as well. It just remains to be seen which club does he fit into.
Okay.
However, I see him staying in Europe.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I agree with you in that sense. Some of these players are not players that should be coming back home, especially at this point in their careers, you know, especially whilst they're still viable. Dolly's still viable, so I do believe the better move for him would be Al Ahly. Zungu's viable, so the better move for him would be to stay in Europe. And then, yeah, I think coming back locally it's more to the twilight of their careers, not now.
Yeah, definitely. And the last man, Percy Tau, he's been linked to Royal Antwerp. What do you make of that? Do you think that he goes back, or do you think he stays and he fights it out and tries to stake a claim within that Brighton team?
Definitely. For me, it's a no-brainer. Stay and fight for your position. You know, you've had a couple of showings, not much to it, but did relatively well for that. You know, nothing out of this world, but you've done relatively well. You're showing that the signs are there, and I mean, nobody can question Percy's work ethic. Nobody can question Percy's patience as well. Yeah. So I would say stick it out, fight it out. But with that being said, if you want consistent game time, he has a cult following in Belgium. Yeah. You know, like literally, these people love him to bits.
Definitely.
He could be a Belgian god.
Yeah.
If he actually goes back.
So I think he also has to stay. However, if he's looking at minutes, then he could go back to Belgium. However, I would like for him to stay and prove his point.
Yes.
You know, yes, he struggled for game time at Brighton. However, I think he's a very good player who can adapt as time goes on. And I think there's definitely a spot for him in Graham Potter's team. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of yet another special episode of Disky Talk with Luyolo. I thoroughly enjoyed this one, dissecting the DSTV Premiership transfer news and all things which have been occurring in the PSL with regards to transfers. Solly, thank you very much for coming through and blessing me with your knowledge.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much to the Disty Talk viewers. And yeah, I'm excited to actually see what you guys have to say about, the coaches we've discussed and the players we've discussed. So comment section, I know it's going to be lit.
Has to be.
Absolutely.
Signing out.